Very good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of the Abhinav Bindra Foundation, I welcome you all to the fifth and last episode of our webinar series, Olympism and its Values. Through this monthly webinar series, we have successfully initiated conversation and exchange ideas on how to move towards building a peaceful and more inclusive world by leveraging the power of sport. For today's episode, our very special guest will be discussing on the ways through which values can be promoted and propagated by athletes and coaches as role models. Olympism has a huge role to play in nation building and in shaping young societies, especially in the post-COVID era. Sporting activities, formal or informal, have been restricted in last couple of years, which means billions of young people have missed out on the most effective way of imbibing values, which play a very important role in defining their core character. In light of these circumstances, it is our responsibility as citizens of the country to ensure that we find ways for Olympism as a framework for values to be adopted by our young population. To ensure that the Olympic movement continues to get stronger, the role of athletes and coaches becomes very critical, as they are the ambassadors for everything that sport stands for. They are the most visible stakeholders, and the sporting ecosystem have an incredibly powerful influence on the youth. Young boys and girls grow up following and admiring their sporting heroes, connecting to their thoughts and actions, watching them, reading about them, and wanting above all to be like them. As India's first individual Olympic gold medalist meets the man who has redefined coaching standards in India by giving many international laurels, including Olympic medals as a coach, today's discourse is titled Athletes and Coaches as Role Model for Values. We would like to thank our partner for the support, Olympic Studies Center, German Sports University Cologne, ISM as our sports education partner, Geetam, our education partner, and the Brish, our media partner. Now I'd like to introduce the moderator for the session, Shantanu Srivastava, who is a sports journalist with Hindustan Times and has an extensive understanding of the Indian sporting ecosystem. I'll now request and invite Shantanu to lead today's session.
Amit, thank you so much for that introduction. I think you're being too kind. I just try to do my work the best way I can. It's indeed a pleasure to be here and share this platform with two of India's best, or shall I say, most sensitized sports people around. And once again, on behalf of Abhinav Bindra Foundation, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to whoever has joined us or is joining us. And it's a wonderful afternoon here in New Delhi, and I do hope whoever is joining us is having a good weekend. But before I begin the discussion proper, let me reiterate that, like Amit said, this is fifth in the series of the webinars that the foundation has been having over the past few months, based on various themes around Olympism, such as value education through sports, inclusion, and so forth. So if you wish to have a look at previous discussions, you may go back to the YouTube channel of this foundation and have a look at those videos after this chat. To all those joining us, I would like to request you to please put yourselves on mute if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, you may type in the comments box, and towards the end of this discussion, we'll try to take as many questions as possible. Right, so without much ado, let me open the floor for today's discussion. And over the next hour or so, we shall be discussing along with Mr. Bindra and Mr. Gopichand on, we'll look to deliberate how Olympic values can be sustained and what roles do athletes and coaches have, in propagating and promoting such values. I won't waste much time talking about our guests in the panel today. Everybody knows who they are, what they have done. But what I will say is they are two of the most, like I said, sensitized and aware sports role models around. And with that, let me begin this discussion by taking Abhinav 22 years back. Sydney seems long time ago, Sydney 2000. that was your first brush with the Olympics, Abhinav, and you were not even 18, not even old enough to drive in India. And what recollections do you have of those Olympics? Abhinav, can you hear me? Okay, Gopi sir, if I may come to you. If I may come to you, Gopi sir, it's the same question for you. You were at a very different stage in your career then. You were 27, among the world top 10, a multiple-time national champion. What was it like? That was your only Olympics, Sydney 2000. Can you sum it up for us?
For me, the Olympics was like a dream, but it was also like a responsibility in some sense, because somehow in my mind, more than the happiness or the pleasure of qualifying for the Olympics, it was kind of staying home and people telling how we've not won medals at the Olympics was being a burden. So although there was a lot of kind of initial happiness to be there at the Olympics, but truly for me, that Olympics truly brings me memories of loss and defeat. The only good point in the entire Olympics for me was me going over to Karnam Malleshwari's room and asking her to show the medal and holding that Olympic medal which she had won. This was about 6 in the morning. I woke her up to see the medal. Me seeing some of the stars whom I really admired, those were the great moments. But overall, it was a disappointment and something I think in my entire life I haven't felt more disappointed than that moment or those times at the Olympics.
But that changed very quickly, Gopi, and I'll come to that, how you turned that around within a span of 6 months. Abhinav, if you are back, I would like to pose the same question to you. 17-year-old Abhinav Bindra walking in to Sydney, taking aim for the first time at the Olympics. What recollections do you have?
Well, I think the recollection I had was, being at that Olympic Games taught me that the Olympic Games was much more than just a sporting event. It stood for much, much more. 206 nationalities living together peacefully in an Olympic village, in an environment of friendship and respect, yet chasing excellence in intense competition and living in peace. It made that experience very, very special. Of course, I was 17 years old, and it was my first Olympic Games. So in many ways, I was like a little kid in a candy store, just soaking everything in, that experience. And I think it was one of the first times I also came across certain Olympic values, it was the first time in my life that I experienced it. And I'll give you an anecdote of one recollection from Sydney. It happened to be with my shooting teammate Anwar Sultan. He competed at the Olympic Games in the trap competition in shooting, and we happened to bump into Serena Williams at the dining hall. And Anwar Sultan was desperate to get a picture with Serena Williams, so he told Serena to wait for him. And Serena actually waited for him for a full hour, because he did find his camera, but he had no film in that camera, so he had to run over to the shops to get a film. But she waited patiently for him, which just showcased that although she was such a famous athlete, there was a great spirit that transcended everybody. And no matter how big you were or how elite you were in your performances or as an athlete, there was this camaraderie, there was this Olympic spirit which really existed for real, and which was a fantastic lesson that I was taught very early on in my Olympic experiences. Of course, I went on to compete in a few other editions. But it really taught me that these Olympic Games are something quite special, which go beyond just a sporting event.
Wow, great. Gopi, you mentioned about Sydney 2000 not being, up to the mark for you personally in terms of performances and results. But 6 months down the line, you became only the second Indian man to win All England. And What changed? I mean, were there any specific Olympic values that you picked in your first and only Olympics that perhaps helped you bounce back? Because bouncing back from failures is among the, is easier said than done. And in a span of 6 months, you turn that around. Could you take me through that process?
I think one of the things was a lesson about failure, because the Olympics comes in once in 4 years, and if you failed at that, it's almost like, and for me, I was playing it at 27 when it was kind of sort of the fag end of a badminton player's career. So at those times. So for me, when you've lost that, it almost like you've lost the biggest thing. So you're kind of used to, or it's okay to lose in the events is what you would think it. And for me, that thing really helped to actually pull down expectations. Apart from the physical recovery aspects and the technical aspects of the sport, which I learned should be done at the big games. In general, the less expectations I had playing the tournament at the Arlington really helped. So that really turned the table for me. But in general, for me, of course, playing at multiple sport events, which is like the Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, gets you to one level of understanding. But I think, as Abhinav has mentioned, I think the atmosphere, the scale, the grandeur, the expectations of people back home all makes Olympics and those friendships and values, I think, a much greater thing in that sense.
For you, I mean, next year you went on to win the Khel Ratna Award, which is, of course, the highest sporting honor in India. The same question for you, Abhinav. Bouncing back, how difficult was it for you as an athlete, and did Olympic values that you picked up in your maiden Olympics have any role to play in that?
For me, my actually at that time, my performance at the Sydney Games was actually quite encouraging for me. I finished 11th at the Games as a 17-year-old, just a point away from an Olympic final appearance, which at that time of Indian sport was a pretty good performance. Shantanu, you represent a new age of journalism in this country, as there is a new generation of athletes, and they would be mightily disappointed if they finished 11th even in their first games, which just showcases the evolution of the Indian athlete and the Indian sporting structure. But at that time, for me, finishing 11th, just a point away, gave me a lot of belief as well that, I had what it took to stand in this arena and go forward, and I had what it took to perhaps win a gold medal at these games. So it was very, very encouraging, which just motivated me to keep pushing. It motivated me to push myself out of the comfort zone. I remember right after Sydney, a year or so after, I had to make a very big decision of my life, which was to move to the United States. I had received an Olympic solidarity, which was at that time $1,000 or something like that one athlete could receive. And there was a choice to make whether I wanted to get that $1,000 and stay in India and train, or pack my bags and move to the US and train at the United States Olympic Training Center. I took that decision. It was a courageous decision to take, but that courage actually came from the fact that I performed reasonably well at Sydney. It gave me a lot of belief, and it gave me a lot of encouragement to keep stepping out of my comfort zone, which really my journey became, to push myself out of my natural comfort zone day in and day out. But my performance, speaking just specifically from a performance point of view, I struggled in Sydney. I was not in the best shape when I landed into Sydney, but I never lost my ability to fight. And it's very interesting that we were there for a long period of time. We landed in Sydney the day the Olympic Village opened, because there were no shooting ranges in India equipped with electronic targets at that time. So we decided that we should go there well in advance. And I remember spent those 2 weeks of shooting in Sydney. The actual competition was my best day of shooting. I was struggling with form, but perform the best that I could on that particular day. So I gave it a good shot. I gave it a good fight, which left me in an encouraged sort of a state of mind.
And right, Abhinav, like most of us, like you said, look at sport in a very, in a very different perspective, like from the athletes in general. The general understanding is that there is a winner, there is a loser. There's this binary of black and white, of success and failure. But having said that, that of course is a part of sport, but it also builds and reveals your character. And in your distinguished career, were there any incidents that helped you realize the larger purpose of sport? You know, the beyond, going beyond this, the results and performances.
Of course, and I think as an athlete, when I was actually competing, I was not able to appreciate them well enough. But I think it is very, very important to appreciate these factors. Now that I've exited my investment of sort, and I can look back at my career a lot more dispassionately. You know, I don't look back at my sports career at the few medals that I won or a gold medal that I won, which hang on my wall at home. I look back at my sports career really at the relationships that I was able to build, the bonds that I was able to forge, you know, the relationships that I was able to build, for example, with my mom and my dad as a young boy, holds so much significance. Even before I started sport, you know, shooting, you know, I used to see my father clean his guns every weekend, and that gave me an opportunity to spend more time with him. As a 12-year-old boy, I packed my bags and left for Germany with my mom. And we lived in a very tiny sports hotel hostel in Wiesbaden in Germany, which had absolutely no communication. It was lonely. The food was bad. It was cold, but it helped me forge a very endearing bond with my mother. And sport gave me that opportunity to do that. Sport also gave me that opportunity and to be able to build relationships with my competitors. Even though we fought fiercely, a lot of my competitors happened to be extremely good friends of mine. I was also able to build excellent relationships with my coaches. Many of them, you know, I treat as family, but many of them who I necessarily did not get along with, but found a way to work, keeping in Olympic values of friendship and respect. You know, my experiences in sport taught me how to deal with conflict of a great degree, self-conflict. My career was all about overcoming self-conflict, but also sport also taught me a way to deal with conflict with other people. So all in all, I think it's sport and perform and just this experience, this long journey in sport was much more about just winning and losing and being the best that I could be. Sport taught me how to be ready for life, basically, and in a very, very unique way that only sport can teach. I'm not proud of the gold medals, so I'm not proud of the medals that I won, but I'm perhaps more proud of the person I became in the process of winning this gold medal. So that to me remains the most important thing. It will remain with me for the rest of my life. The gold medal was one event. It was an event on a sports field. At the end of the day, we are athletes, and we are sometimes given too much heroship or hero worship than we actually deserve. We're just athletes trying to perform. We're not saving anybody's lives, but sport teaches us to be unique individuals in its own unique way. And I'm so grateful that sport gave me that opportunity.
It's amazing how casually you say that, the gold medal doesn't mean much to you now. But ask anyone, ask our sport fans, and they might have a different take. Gopi sir, was it the same for you too? I mean, the Olympic values of excellence, friendship, respect, Abhinav was about, shaped his personality, shaped his relationships, built relationships. Are there any incident in your life where these values went beyond the field of play and helped shape your personality?
Well, Shantanu, your voice wasn't so clear, but I probably understand it a little bit. So in case I don't answer the question exactly, answer the question, then you can ask me. But yes, for me, I think very true to Abhinav's point, the fact that I think I'm proud of the person whom I am, having gone through the process of trying to excel in sport. I think that for me was very important. The travel, the failures, the relationships, the understanding of cultures and people, and living with conflict and overcoming self-doubt and fear. I think these were actually major things in my life. And today, for me, I think the process of becoming a champion is the most important thing. Whether you become a champion or not is really actually not so relevant. But I think it should end up making you a successful person. And whether you're a success in sport at that point of time, whether you win a medal at that time or not, is in today's, if I were to look back, I would say it's even immaterial. I think sport is that seed capital which makes you benefit out of the process. And I think that is very, very important. Having said that, for me, in my entire journey, when I was coaching top players, it was about a single minded approach to win. But what really changed perspectives was when I was training a young kid and she couldn't catch a shuttle. And she came up to me to ask, "Sir, teach me how to catch." So that very instance changed me my perspective about sport. Is sport only for the genetically endowed? Is sport competition and winning so important? Or people trying to be, or the best processes are the important thing. So that instant actually changed a lot of things in my life and my understanding of sport overall. I appreciate sport much better than what I've ever done, thanks to that one incident. And I also believe that the value of sport is much more than just producing medals or for the few people who actually win and make it into a career. I think I could safely say that the process of trying to be a champion is what is most important, more important than even becoming a champion itself.
Wonderfully put, Abhinav. But don't you sense a bit of self-contradiction in in the very pursuit of winning? The thrust of winning that an athlete puts on himself or herself, and Olympism, which speaks about friendship, respect, playing fair, which is all too good, or some may say in theory, but when you are out there trying to compete, doesn't it become contradictory in a sense?
To an extent, yes. Olympic values is all about the joy and effort, and the process that Gopi just talked about so well. That is actually for every athlete, whether you win or not. That is the true joy. The joy in that journey that you have, the joy that you take in the process of being the best that you can be. Coming to me on a personal level, I try and articulate it in that way. I went to the 2004 Olympics really wanting to win. I wanted it so badly, and it was only about winning. And perhaps my few years in the United States also shaped me in that thought process that I was the best, and I had to win and this and that. And ironically, I didn't win, and I finished seventh in that Olympic final. And what changed in that great failure of mine and in that great disaster of an Olympic final of mine was that I became a very detached person from outcomes. I didn't really care in Beijing whether I had to win or not. My journey really became a journey of trying to achieve self-respect. And there comes the next Olympic value of respect. It's not just about respecting rules, and it's not just about respecting others. It's also a journey to finding your own self-respect. And I was able to find my own self-respect even before I boarded my flight to Beijing, because I had invested into the process in those 4 years. the journey became the gold medal. The process became the gold medal. I wanted to do everything I humanly possibly could to prepare for that Olympic Games in Beijing and to be the best athlete that I humanly possibly could be, to leave absolutely no stone unturned, to be really committed to the moment, to be really committed to the process, no matter what the outcome be, and gain joy in that effort, to really gain joy in that whole process. And that is what I truly embraced in those years leading up to Beijing, and that helped me gain myself respect. I looked myself into the mirror before boarding that flight to Beijing, and I asked myself the question that have I given it my best to prepare for these games? Have I given it my all? And the answer was yes. There was practically nothing more I could do to prepare for the games, and there I was already a winner. I was already a winner in my own eyes. And that was something supremely powerful and supremely effective in terms of getting that self-respect. And when I was in Beijing, I never thought about winning. It was immaterial. My job in hand was to live in the moment, one shot at a time, one moment after the other, to be the best that I could be in 70 shots. That's the opportunity I had to shoot. And if I would have had to shoot off, then I had another opportunity. But that was the goal. So yeah, and that ironically, without being focused on that outcome, I achieved the outcome which I chased. So, at the Olympic Games, you will have 10,000 athletes go to the games. 300 of them will go back with gold medals. You mean the rest are losers? Definitely not. They would gain equally, and they will gain experiences of a lifetime. So while I understand the contradiction, I understand where you're coming from, and perhaps the reason why that has happened is because that is what society has made winning to be. We're making just associating too much to winning, maybe, and do not really realize what it takes. Of course, as athletes, as fierce competitors, we want to win and we want to be the best that we can be. But if we don't win, and that will normally be the case because we will fail many more times than we lose, there is more to it, and those are important elements that need to be brought out. Those are important elements that need to be highlighted because there are tremendous lessons in even those. There are lessons, of course, society can gain from seeing the gold medal winner or a medalist. But there are many lessons you can also learn and society can really gain from, which can aid in nation building, just looking at everybody's journeys and everybody's pursuit towards excellence.
And it's amazing how many times athletes use the word process, and and it's also equally amazing, how misconstrued the word is. But when you speak, when you elaborate what the pursuit, that process actually is, that's when the import of it actually comes through. Gopi sir, I would like to come to you. Abhinav spoke about various characters in his life that have helped him understand this Olympic values. There was his mother, his coaches, his family. Who have been the strongest influencers or role models for you in your journey to imbibe these values?
For me, I think parents, of course, they've been like solid pillars and foundations. Coaches, I'm what I am because I had some great coaches all along. It was not as though I had designed anything, it was destined to happen. I was very fortunate to have somebody as a grassroots level coach called Hamid Hussain, who was very loving, who made me love the sport more than anything else. More than he taught, it was the fact that he made me love to come to the stadium. That was critical. Arif sir, discipline. Prakash sir was motivation and inspiration. And then Ganguly Prasad was friendship and plotting. And the two Chinese coaches whom I had, one was in Delhi for 2 years, and one in Germany, was about hard work and a lot about failure, because many of the lessons about failure never came to me in my journey in India as much as my Chinese coach in Germany had taught me, because I think we're going to fail more often than we're going to win. And if we have to be ready to win, I think we need to kind of embrace or be okay to lose. And I think take your lessons from it. I think that is very, very important for me. So I think overall, these were the ones who were there. And it was not about somebody who was on the cover of a book or something who was an inspiration, but my competitors who were George Thomas was one, there's Dipankar Bhattacharya, there was Rajiv Cook, people who actually played around me during that time. I think I learned a lot from them. I think inspirational. They were my rivals, but hugely respected their work ethic, and they pushed me to another level.
Gopi, as a coach now, do you willy-nilly try to pass on these Olympic values to your trainees? I mean, I would like to understand your coaching philosophy a bit in terms of integrating these values, these right values, while dealing with your wards. So could you please elaborate on that? Is there a fixed formula, or is it a very organic process for you?
I think it's important that people enjoy the sport itself. People are happy playing the sport. I think you're going to be very, very not so happy. You're not going to continue playing sport if you're not happy with it, because you have to spend 20, 30 years of your life till the time you become a champion. And then you kind of need to really love what you're doing. And if you start the game of sport at 8 or 10 years old, after about 10 full years of playing 6 to 8 hours a day and your life revolving around the sport, you become something. And if you need to really be a top player of the world, maybe 15 years, 20 years. So one of the first things is you need to be happy doing what you're doing. I think that's important. The second is embracing or accepting that failure is part and learn from those mistakes. These are two important things which are very much. And I think you need to have friendships. You need to have respect for yourself, for the work which you put, for the work which your opponents put. And I think that is also very, very important. So, and excellence, I think to refine the process over and over again till you actually make it really top notch. I think this is what for me. So I've kind of lived or played at a time when these things were burdensome in some sense. Today, I look at the entire process and I would say just relax. In the sense, I would tell players just relax, give it all you have in the session, continue to be happy, count your blessings, feel gratitude for where you are, and then just relax. It's okay to fail. I think I'm a lot more respectful or a lot more okay with failure now than I've been ever before, because I've seen a lot more of it than actually victory, even as a player and as a coach.
Abhinav, were there any moments in your life or career when your convictions in these values that we just discussed were tested? I mean, we are all humans, and we can have doubts. We can doubt our convictions. We can doubt our beliefs. Just wanted to understand, did you ever have those doubts to, why am I following these set of values? Why can't I take an easy way out? Were you ever challenged? Were those values ever challenged in your life?
We'll talk about the value of respect a little bit, and I refer to a certain conflict that I had with one of my coaches. So I had a few sets of coaches, a couple I loved, and one particular coach who I didn't generally get on with, because he always told me things I did not want to hear. He was my fiercest critic throughout my sports career. And even though I had done something well and something good, he always had something to criticize, and that of course brought in conflict. And as a young boy, I never really understood this person early on, and that brought I did not really understand how to deal with this conflict. Of course there were tears, of course there was argument early on, of course there was a little bit of shouting here and there, but slowly but surely, I started to understand the value of his advice. I started to understand the value of his perspective. And that became something very, very valuable. And I was only able to gain from his perspective because even though I disregarded or did not necessarily agree to everything I said that he tried to teach me or tell me, I always respected his perspective, and I always started to at least give it a patient hearing. I mean, early on as a young boy, I would just have so much resistance that even when he started to say something, I would look the other way. And there were several instances I remember very clearly. One day in Germany, I had an argument with him, and there was a huge storm that day in Germany, and we had a big fight, and he refused to take me back. So I had to walk 10 kilometers in a snowstorm to my hotel room. But it was an interesting learning, and I just learned the next time that I have to learn to deal with this conflict better with him, because I don't want to walk in snow the next day again. So, but it taught me how to deal with conflict. And I can tell you that perhaps 95% of the things I didn't listen to him, but the 5 things that did stick and became the most valuable pieces of advice I'd ever received in my sports career, and actually became turning points in my life. So because I valued those, and of course I struggled to value those, that value of respect early on to this individual, but slowly but surely I just learned to respect a different perspective, and eventually I gained tremendously from just hearing the man out and picking up a few golden nuggets which came my way through him. So that was a very interesting relationship that was built in my sports career, and has taught me many things. And I just have to tell you that I still speak to this person very, very often, almost on a weekly basis. Nothing about sport, but even about the smallest advices I want in life. I speak to him. He even gives me stock market advice nowadays. Interesting to see how that relationship has evolved.
Mm-hmm. Abhinav, how can we take these values to younger generations? Like Gopi, of course, has an avenue. He deals with various age groups of upcoming players. He can, in his own way, impart those values. But for, let's say, other senior athletes or coaches, role models, what would you suggest? How do you take these values to up-and-coming people?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. I think, firstly, it's very, very important to recognize that there is a need. And I think there is a very important need, especially in our country. We are a very young country with our demographic, 50% of it below the age of 25. I think all these kids of today, whether they play sport or whether they become Olympians or not, they can all gain from the philosophy of leading a life of Olympism, imbibing these values. And there I feel that there can be a great amount of synergy between education, our education structures, as well as sport, and really imbibing something like, say, an Olympic value education program, which is not towards the development of elite athletes, but about experiential learning and imbibing values. And I believe that it will have a tremendous impact in nation building. We are all after economic success and, wanting to become a $5 trillion economy and so on and so forth. And it's very interesting to see that, all global economics superpowers also happen to be sporting superpowers. And I believe that there's a direct connection between the two. And why have they become economics superpowers? I believe they become economic superpowers because sport has played a very important role in the foundation of their citizens. Sport has imbibed all these values, which has left them in good stead to be super successful in whatever sphere of life they have. I mean, whether it be about following rules. As human beings, when do we follow? When is our first concept? When are we exposed to the concept of rules? When we play a game, when we play a sport, it always has a set of rules. The concept of working hard, of having goals. So I believe that, it has a huge role in their education. I think through our education systems, we have to do a better job of bringing in this experiential learning. Of course, we want to become a sporting superpower on the sporting field, but we really have to build a culture of sport. And that culture of sport will help imbibe these values and make us successful, not just on the field of play in sport, but in many other spheres of life.
Gopi, how do you see yourself or other athletes or coaches as role models in society? I mean, uh, like Abhinav said, the responsibilities extend beyond the field of play, beyond what you do in your profession. Uh, how do you see, the role of athletes and coaches in terms of nation building and being a role model?
I think I think more than ever before, I think the role of sport and role models is huge. And today, I think positive role models in growth, whether it's for the pride of the country or the self-belief or just to inspire somebody, I think it's very important to have good role models. And athletes, by their victories, by their stories, become that. Coaches, by the number of people they can influence in their lifetime, become those. So I think these are very, very important, and we should, as a young nation, I think, invest in those positive stories. And I believe uh, to have the right role models and to actually follow the right people and is one of the most important things to actually have people of younger generation follow through. And I think athletes and coaches have a big role in that.
Sure. I have a few more questions, but I think we are running out of time. We have already hit the 40-minute mark, and there are a few questions from the audiences also coming in. So I'd like to wrap it up pretty quickly. Gentlemen, I began this discussion with Sydney 2000, and I would like to end it with Rio 2016. Uh, Abhinav, I'll come to you first. You would have seen Gopi sir in Sydney 2000, and here he was on the court side, with Sindhu winning that medal in Rio. As a fellow journeyman, having seen him transition from a player to an excellent coach, how did you feel in his moment of success?
Well, I think firstly, I think Gopi has been an inspiration to me personally, and he's been a huge inspiration, of course, to the entire country through his exploits as an athlete, through his exploits as a coach. But what I really, really respect him for and what I find extremely endearing in him is the sort of person he is. The person who is a perfect role model of being an athlete, of imbibing these values, of having that respect for everybody, of chasing excellence day in and day out, of forging friendships. So just the way he's carried himself off, on and off the field is something which I deeply, deeply respect. Whether he would have success or whether he won't have success, that is absolutely immaterial. But just the kind of person he's become, and I think, of course, just the kind of person he's become through sport has made the world a better place.
Gopi, a similar question for you. Rio was Abhinav's last Olympics. Having seen him as a promising shooter in Sydney 2000, to until that time India's only individual Olympic gold medalist, what were your thoughts on him as an athlete and as well as an ambassador of the Olympism?
I think for me, we as a country can't find somebody better than him to lead this, not only as India's first gold medalist at the Olympics, but also as somebody who can actually talk about it, represent the whole journey. Because I think that statement of Abhinav, and Abhinav, I really say this so often, that the Olympics doesn't come once every 4 years, it comes every day. I think that is what he shows through his life. And I've been very fortunate. I was not lucky to interact with him as much as an athlete and a coach, but more than the normal acquaintances. But I think thanks to the Olympic Task Force, I think I have actually seen him in action, his clarity of thought, and also I think in his dossier about the shooting system which needs to be put in place. I think he's somebody who's very clear in his vision, and he's very sharp and articulate in the way he puts it across. And I just hope that people listen to him more often, and that's what I think is very, very important. Because I think we need people like him, and I think it's very important that the system imbibes those lessons which he talks about and the values which he brings to the table.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, we are in the last leg of this question and answer session, and I'd like to end it with a little test of your reflexes. I know it's been a while since you stopped playing, so but I can test it. Why not? So I have a set of few rapid fire questions that I'd like you to answer. And by rapid fire, I mean I won't give you more than 3 seconds to think. So Abhinav, I'd like to start with you. Tell me what comes to your mind first when I say the following words, okay? Beijing.
If
Athens.
heartbreak,
10.9.
just a number.
Lieutenant Colonel J.S. Dhillon.
A huge role model.
Oh. Gopi sir, for you, Sydney 2000.
Pain.
Mr. S.M. Arif.
Discipline.
All England 2001.
Happened.
Abhinav, what is dearer to you and why? Again, not more than 3 seconds, please. A 10.9 or a cheat day at training?
None. I'm detached from outcomes.
What does that mean? A cheat day, right?
10.9 means nothing. It's just a number. What was the second one? A cheat day, huh?
Yeah.
No cheat days. I would never gain self-respect for no cheat days.
Gopi sir, for you, All England 2001 or Rio 2016?
Rio 2016, because I had a process and I plotted for it.
Abhinav, one athlete or coach who inspired you the most in your playing days?
Pullela Gopichand, both as athlete and as coach.
Gopi sir, for you, and the answer has to be different from Abhinav Bindra.
Abhinav Bindra.
Oh, come on. Okay, Abhinav, one Olympic value to live by.
Respect.
Gopi, for you, one Olympic value to live by.
Excellence.
What is tougher to deal with, Gopi, success or failure, and why?
I think a failure.
And why?
I think you're alone and you have to pull yourself out. And you have to succeed to tell your story.
Abhinav, for you, the same question. What was more difficult to deal with for you, success or failure, and why?
Both brought unique crises. Success to me was a big crisis as well. Failure was hard as well, but was also motivation to get back on track.
Last one, Abhinav, complete this sentence for me. Olympism is important because
it brings solidarity, and that is so essential in the world we live in.
Of course. Gopi sir, for you, the same question. Olympism is important because?
I think equality and fairness and somebody to win against all odds and change his lives and the lives of countries happens through this.
Okay, now I'll quickly take some questions from the audiences. Some of them have sent their questions while they were registering, and there are a few live questions as well. I think this is the first one from Monica Rana. Asks, what is that one quality that you admire about each other? I think you have answered it during the course of the discussion, but nevertheless, quickly, please, what is the one quality, Abhinav, about Gopi that you like, and Gopi about Abhinav that you like?
Well, his discipline. His discipline as an athlete, the discipline that he brings on court with all his wards and his way of training. So that is something I really admire.
For me, Abhinav, I think the way he's conducted his entire career, I think has been phenomenal. The processes which he sticks to, and today as the ambassador he is.
There's a question from Nigel Green. How do the Olympic values link to the aims of physical literacy, where all individuals are encouraged to value and engage in physical activity for life? Abhinav, would you like to take this?
I think Gopi is a better person to take this because he's really championed the cause of physical literacy. So I think he'll have better insight than me.
Mm-hmm. I think somewhere the founding fathers of the Olympics and Margaret Whitehead, who talks about physical literacy, I think the principles are the same. Sport is about togetherness, about excellence, about sharing, and about getting together and showcasing your talents. That's what it is. Somewhere in between, I think the war, whether it's the Cold War or whether it's marketing, actually took us away from these and made these into very a pride-related, winning-related obsession, which I think has taken its toll, whether it's mental health or whether it's doping or cheating. I think a lot of things actually have taken the very spirit of Olympism away. And today, what Abhinav speaks about it, or today when I speak about it, I speak about it today after a whole circle in sport, that I do believe that the founding fathers of the Olympics, or people who actually connected the dots backwards, realized that the value of sport and the value of people going through the process of sport or becoming a champion, or the whole value of physical exercise or movement, is far more important than winning itself. And I think some way in which these processes, the benefits of sport, whether it's confidence, team building, whether it's friendship, respect, excellence, equality, I think all of these are the values which we should start propagating and pronouncing and awarding and rewarding. Because till the time when only 300 people out of 10,000 win medals and we count only those, I think we are going to show ourselves as failure, because the rest of them are coming back as failures. But really, the experiences which Abhinav has spoken about, the experiences which we have gained by playing those sport and even losing, I think we have to count them as positives. And somewhere in this line, if you're able to start counting those positives, I think we would have done ourselves a great service. In its totality, in its true spirit, I think both are the same, as what my understanding is.
Wonderfully put. Abhinav, I have a very simple and a very innocent query from one of our viewers. Ravi Swario asks, sir, how to help the talented sports students? Now, I'm assuming he's a budding athlete and he wants some tips on, what kind of values does he need to imbibe, what kind of, if you can share from your experiences, how an upcoming athlete like him can gain.
Yeah, I think it's about really making them appreciate the joy and effort. I think that is exactly what Gopi was talking about. And, current day society has made it all about winning, which is important to an extent, but it is not about that. Sport is not about just simply winning. There are many other things in sport. And I think if you can get your young athletes to really imbibe that sort of thinking of really getting joy from their journeys, getting joys from the effort that they put in, you'll just make them happier individuals. You'll just make them more wholesome human beings, and that in itself will really make them winners in life. And that, I think, is very, very important, even more important than making them winners on the play field. So it is, all these Olympic values and all of it, I think it is a huge amount also really depends on the environment we create, the environment we create for sport. Yes, we want to win more medals and we want to be in the top whatever in the world. All is good. But the environment that we create, a safe environment where effort is valued, where values are imbibed, that is extremely, extremely important in India. With us being a young country, there'll be more participation in sport. Many more younger people will participate in sport from here on, given the different programs that we have running for sport in India, etc. That would also mean that we'll also have many more people fail in sport in India. And we all have to make sure that they're not just labeled as failures in life for the rest of their lives, and that they are able to gain from these experiences that they put in sport for a number of years, which help them become winners in life, which is far more important than winning a championship or winning a trophy or winning a medal.
Wonderful. I'll take the last question for the day, and this is for Gopi sir. There's a viewer, Ashish Rawat, who asks, how truly Olympic value education leads to an excellent athlete and better human being can be heard. Okay, he wants to understand what is the role of an Olympic values and value education in the overall development of an athlete, not just as an athlete, but as a human being also.
I think the very essence of sport is about that, in the sense, truly, if you start valuing, because even if you were to go outside and play unorganized sport, you have to start communicating with people. I want to play cricket, somebody's saying, I want to play gilli danda, or somebody's saying, I want to play kho. I think you need to communicate, you tell them what you want to play, and your communication goes up, and somebody decides to play a game which is not what you like, but you go and tag along. I think in life, that lesson that sometimes you might like something but you're doing something else is something which is very important. If you play something, if you don't pass the ball to four people, next day you're not part of the team. So team building is important. It comes naturally in sport. You have a ball in your leg, you have to make a decision then. If you have a file on your table, you have to make the decision then. I think decision making comes naturally with sport. So there are tons of things which actually help you as a sports person. In the sense, I'm not even talking about discipline, health, and all of the other benefits of it, or the money which you get. I think generally playing sport has huge benefits. I think we should encourage kids to play, and we should start valuing them or counting them. In the progress report of sport, it cannot be gold medal 1, gold, silver 2, and bronze 3, and end of story. No, I think whether it's communication, whether it's friendships, whether it's values of lessons of respect, of hard work, of discipline, I think there's tons of benefits of sport. We need to respect that about sport. And when we do that, I think everybody who participates in sport is a winner. And I think participation is more important than winning itself. And this is something which Jawaharlal Nehru had said, and I laughed at it for half my life. I think that's true. I think there's a lot more value of even participating in sport, and we have to start valuing those things.
Wonderful, gentlemen. I could have gone on and on, but we are really short of time. And I must thank both of you for taking time out for this. It has been a very informative and a supremely stimulating session for all of us. I'm sure I'm speaking for the hundreds of people who are there with us and who will be listening to this recording later. And thank you so much, guys, for being here, for sharing your experiences with us. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Amit, who will close the session. Amit, all yours.
On behalf of Abhinav Bindra Foundation, we want to thank everyone who has made this webinar very successful, including all our panelists, moderator, and over 7,000 audience who gave their time and who tuned in to listen to exchange of ideas for last 6 months. I hope all of us are able to learn and gain some meaningful insight through the series, and we'll try to imbibe them in our day-to-day lives as focus and as multiple times mentioned even in today's session. So on that note, we take your leave for time being and hope to be together in future for exchange of ideas